everyone who's not supposed to be speaking and invite them one by one.
All right. Sorry for the technical complications right here, but I'm very happy to see that everybody is here at our unfortunately online event of the second run of the Emergent Student Data Science Consulting Projects. I'm very happy to see that there are so many people here to see what the teams have come up with at the end of the project. So what are we going to talk about today? The consulting journey, of course. We had 3 amazing projects for our clients, CSI Business Consulting, Comproved and Minecraft. And they were all guided by the data science experts of our partners, Mobius, B12 and HighMind. So what does this evening look like? First, I will do a short introduction on Emergent Student Consulting and what it is about, and then we will go over the 3 projects, Comproved, Minecraft and CSI, and then our partners will each give a short presentation on their consulting firm. So what is Emergent Consulting all about? Emergent brings together different stakeholders, namely partners, students and clients. 3 teams of students were brought together to solve a real-life case by one of our clients, and were guided by the industry experts of one of our partners. What did it look like? So it were teams of around 5 students. They had 8 weeks to solve this problem, which I will present after this. They had 1 meeting per week and also some client and partner contact. And with Emergent, we gave them some interesting workshops to guide them through the process. And then it's enough talking for me. I give the floor to the team of Comproved, and I'm very happy to hear what they brought up.
So, sorry, we just had a slight technical issue with my laptop. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Aditya, and I'll be speaking on behalf of Team Comproved. So, our challenge given by Comproved was to extract meaningful insights from mass feedback data. So, next slide, please. So, let me introduce our team a bit. So, we have people from all across. We have people from different sectors, and we even have our good our Dionys, who was our excellent Emergent coordinator and who helped us a lot throughout the project. But we all belong to various walks of life. So going on. So first, a quick brief about Comproved. So Comproved, basically, it's a digital platform that provides a better assessment service for educators and students. So it is the platform where teachers can go in and they can get assessments done for their presentations, for the papers and all such things. And they had a problem. You see, they had this system in which teachers could actually provide certain questions on which students could answer and give feedback on. And these were open-ended questions, could be very specific questions as well. And they had this all as a mass data, but they wanted to make more use of it, because the data was a lot of data. A single, like for example, the very first case we encountered, it had 3 questions, each with over 2,000 feedbacks in Dutch. So if you are an educator with this kind of feedback, you can't really make use of something like this. So we were given the task to make some sense out of all this data. Next slide, please. So our initial approach, after discussing with B12, our partners in consulting, and of course within our team, we decided to pull out 2 different meanings. First, we decided to pull out a sense of positive or negative feedback. So we wanted to classify the entire feedback into positive or negative, so that the teachers would know what it would trend towards. And we would also want to, for each question, pull out certain key points where we would want to, which teachers could take and they could use it to develop their courses further. So for the first one, we decided to target sentiment analysis. And for the second, a relatively new field called topic model. And the output would be in a PDF. Of course, this was the initial approach, but man proposes, God disposes. But as you'll see. Next slide, please. So we divided into 2 teams. One was handling sentiment analysis and one was handling topic model. So starting with sentiment analysis, we immediately ran into issues. We had no labeled data. And without labeled data, we could only rely on pre-trained inference models, which was a problem because all of them were mostly in English, and there were very few trained models in Dutch. And the thing with trained models is that it is all about the corpus they're trained on. And many Dutch models were trained on big pieces of text, and they really did not do well with the kind of text which we had, small snippets. And so we had an inference performance of almost a coin flip in most of these models, like BERT-NL, BERT-J, some multilingual models. Robert actually didn't even have a sentiment model in place. And we also found that students love to give like compound feedback. So there was, I like this, I don't like this. So it ended up being a neutral, which kind of lost the entire meaning of the feedback. So what we did was, next slide, please. So we tried to start off with, we tackle each problem one at a time. So for the Dutch models, we tried to translate them. We tried out a couple of services. We tried out Google Translate, Amazon Translate, DeepL, which worked very well. Then we used Roberta which was a Roberta model, not exactly Roberta itself, but a Roberta model trained on Twitter feeds to try to get sentiment out of each of the feedbacks. It worked well, but the problem was the cost. There's no free lunch, and definitely not in translation. So if we actually went forward with this technique, it would have a decent accuracy, but it would cost almost 20 euros per assessment, which was not acceptable to either Comproved or their customers. The second problem, for the multiple sentences, we tried to tokenize them. We used our own regexes at first, but as you can see, some of our feedbacks were really complicated, as you can see from the picture there. They had some, and most of our regex was trying to capture edge cases which were not working very well. But then we realized we were doing NLP. So we picked up a sentence tokenizer from Spacey and NLTK, which are both natural language toolkits. And one of them performed better, so we chose NLTK to tokenize the sentences and break them into multiple feedbacks. Next, please. But of course, the problems still remain. What do we do with the sentiment? Now, KU Leuven, being an educational institute, has a big advantage. It turned out that the creator of Robert, the biggest Dutch NLP model there is, was a KU Leuven PhD student. So we went and talked to him. And he indicated that we could actually fine-tune our model with as little as 1,000 labels. And that was the best way forward. So we sat down when we labeled over 1,000 feedbacks with positive, negative, and neutral. And we trained out the Robert model on it, fine-tuned it technically. And we got a decent accuracy of around 85%, which was also mostly because of the tricky way you have to classify neutrals, because neutral can be very difficult to really pull out. So I think it was sufficient for our purposes. But while we were doing this, our other team was handling issues of its own. Now, topic modeling is a relatively new field, and it again ran into the same issue we had in sentiment analysis, Dutch. And we realized that not only were the top topic models like BERT topic or top2vec not performing as well, but when they actually performed, when we took in aggregation the entire question and all its feedbacks, they gave back the question because that was the topic. And that was the sense of topic modeling. So we were not able to pull out more than the question with topic modeling. And so what we decided, next please. We tried out a lot of issues. We tried a lot of different approaches via BERT topic. We tried a lot of models. We also tried another approach called named entity recognition. What it essentially does, it pulls out certain entities, like, for example, names or locations from blocks of data. But again, NER was great at pulling out very specific bits of information, but not for things like spelling or presentations or something like that. So it was not serving our purpose. So finally, what we did is we made a noun counter. We realized we just wanted to count the proper and common nouns. So we used Spacey, and we counted not only we identified nouns in each feedback, and we basically used the hash table to store not only the counts, but also their positions. Now, what this enabled us to do was it enabled us to combine sentiment analysis and noun counters. Previously, we had just thought to put an overall sentiment score and the top 5 topics per feedback. But instead, now we could actually get the positive, negative, and neutral sentiments of each topic, which was fantastic. So we meshed these two systems together and we made it ready for visualization. Next, please. So this was what our final pipeline looked like. The user uploaded a CSV, which would come from Comproved. There would be a bit of data cleaning and sentence splitting. Then the sentiment analyzer would run using a tuned model. Then the noun counter would make the hash table and combine it with the sentiments. And finally, we ran a visualizer to have a nice PDF output for the entire thing. And we actually initially made a small offline app for it, but we realized that it would be better to have, thanks to our advice from B12 as well, that an online version would serve us better. So we used an online service called Gradio, and we set up a small front end for the model and for the entire pipeline, where you could just drag and drop the file, press submit, and in a few seconds, you would have your PDF output ready. Next, please. And this is how the output looked like. There would be a criteria, which would be a question. There could be as many as you want, it doesn't matter. There would be an overall score, which would tell you in terms of blue, white, and orange. These are the improved colors. So what were the positive, neutral, and negative sentiments? So immediately, as you can see here, the overall sentiment was trending negative towards this topic. What would be the top 5 most mentioned nouns and the sentiments according to it? So it's a bit small to see here, but the first noun has a very strong positive sentiment, which means people loved it. But they also are, the second noun very clearly shows that people were ambivalent or negative towards it. So this way, teacher would know what to focus on for his courses and what not to focus on. And maybe he would also overall know for the topic what was the essence of the entire feedback. Next, please. So for the next step, of course, our model was trained on relatively less data, and seeing it was very open-ended, we would want it to be, as there'll be feedbacks which it would not perform well against. So maybe continuous training there would be really help. And of course, this is a proof of concept, really. This has to be first tested and then integrated into the Comproved system. And this was something we actually thought from the very beginning. So in fact, something like even our visualization, for example, is done in Plotly rather than something more traditional like Plotlib. Because Plotly puts these HTML-ready charts, which are interactive and can easily adapt to small screens. So with a few lines of code, you can easily adapt it into the online platform itself. And we do hope that Comproved does that. So that's it from my side. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Aditya. Thank you, Aditya, for your very interesting explanation on the Comproved project. So before we go to the next project, I would like to invite Mihailo to the stage, but I already see that he's here. And then I would love to give the floor to him to give a short presentation on B12 Consulting, which was a partner for this project. So Mihailo, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So thanks for inviting me to this event. And let me just begin by saying that on our side, it was really a wonderful collaboration with you guys to work on the Comproved project. And can also say what an impressive job you've done in a very short amount of time. So I want to tell you a little bit about B12 Consulting, the company that I work for, where I'm currently a data science and AI lead. What you can see in this picture here is our group in our newly inaugurated headquarters in Louvain-la-Neuve. We can go to the next slide. So if you asked me to describe B12 Consulting and what we do in 3 lines, it would look something like this. So first of all, we're a group of people who helps companies and clients realize their ambitions through innovation. So we're an innovation company. We're also a niche company in the sense that we really focus on the most difficult business challenges where you don't really have standard solutions. So we're not the system integrators. We're really the kind of guys who try to build innovative things for very, very difficult solutions. Finally, we're purely a service business. We don't have any products. All the intellectual property and everything that we build always belongs to our clients. Next slide. In a few numbers, B12 would look like this. So we've been around since 2012, so almost 10 years. We've had about, 100% retention rate since then. We are 31 person at the moment, out of which 27 are consultants, 30% hold a PhD, 90% are masters in a variety of fields. So far, we've been managing 20% growth per year on average, and this is basically a controlled growth. And we have a portfolio of about 70 plus clients from Belgium, US, and other places. Next slide. About 50% of our business is data science, machine learning, and AI. About the same amount of business is software development. Then we have third line, which kind of integrates into both, which is kind of classical IT consulting. We also do consulting in AI ethics. That's one of our recent addition to the service line. We cover a range of technologies. In data science, we do anything from image recognition, NLP, to key factor analysis, statistical analysis, simulations, all kinds of stuff. In software development, we have expertise in different kinds of frameworks and languages: Scala, TypeScript, Python, Node.js, all kinds of stuff, Angular, React, etc. Next slide. We are also sector agnostic. So we serve all kinds of companies in terms of size, from startups to multinationals, and sectors from mobility to pharmaceutical industry, universities, automotive industry, healthcare, biotech, all kinds of stuff. If I could, pick out a few strengths of the company, I would say the number one is the ability to innovate. And I always like to give examples of these kinds of projects to illustrate what this means. So we are working with a company called Jack, which is a spin-off of AGC. They're a global manufacturer of windshields. So Jack wanted to develop an acoustic device that you could put on the inside of your car, on the windshield. And this device would listen for impacts on the windshield, and based on these acoustic signals, they wanted to be able to tell if the windshield broke when something hit it, and also, if possible, where the impact happened. So they contacted us to help them out, and we helped them actually develop the device. We helped them develop the technology to analyze the signals, to be able to tell whether the windshield broke or not. And the product is actually developed now. It's in deployment. It's being marketed to large clients, and hopefully soon you will be able to buy it also in one of the local stores, or even maybe Amazon. Next slide. Our other big strength is really the ability to work and solve the very difficult problems. So as an example of this, I'd like to bring up Medispring, which is the next generation patient management platform we developed for a startup. This was a very challenging project because it's a very complex platform with very complex features integrated into all kinds of government APIs and authentication services. Because it's handling a lot of medical data, there's an emphasis on privacy and security by design, which is not an easy task to fit in. And then the emphasis was also on because it's a next generation platform, to automate many procedures. For instance, the annoying thing of taking the receipt from the doctor and having to file it with the insurance company yourself. So if you are living in Brussels or in Wallonia and you have a general practitioner, odds are that they're actually using this platform right now. Next slide. Our third big strength is the ability to deliver, especially under tight budget constraints and under short deadlines. So recently we had a case like this where a mobility startup approached us to help them fix their routing algorithm. So they had a solution which worked okay, but it was extremely non-scalable, and they wanted to deploy it on the scale of Belgium, and they didn't know how to do it. We thought that we had a way to help them out, but the big issue was that since it's a startup, the funding was limited and the release was coming up, so the time was limited as well. And we managed to essentially fix this solution, build it in, and deploy it in the 1/3 of the resources of the original solution. Next slide. I'd like to end because there are a lot of people in the crowd who are students and maybe looking for positions soon. That at B12 Consulting, we're always looking for talent. In particular, we're looking for a very particular combination of qualities and skills in candidates, which is a bit niche. So we look for people who are very ambitious, first of all. We're looking for people who accept challenges as a good thing. So we want people who are really not afraid to jump in the deep end of the pool, so to speak. We want people who can work fast. And above anything, we want people who are willing and are happy to learn a lot and to learn very quickly. So if you're finding yourself in any of these 4 bullets, you should feel free to contact us. We have a few positions open right now, but even if we don't, we always would like to talk to you. And if we really like you, we will find a way to bring you in. Next slide. So that's my quick presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. You have my contact information there. You also have information about the company. You can see our new building in the background slide right there. And if you'd like to come and visit, you're more than welcome to as well. Thanks.
All right, thank you for that, Michailo. So while we're changing some stuff with the slides, I would really like to thank you for being a partner at the consulting project this semester. We love to have you. And then we'll jump to the next project, which is the Limecraft project. I'm very happy to see the results of this project because it's a project that I was also involved in from Emergent side. So I would love to give the floor to Adeline and Adi for their presentation on the Limecraft project.
Hi everyone, as Branko just mentioned, we are Team Galapagos. So why Galapagos? Because we were used to meet in the Galapagos room at Agora, and we worked with the company which is called Limecraft. Limecraft is offering some services for video project makers. It's helping for asset management, project making of the video, and transcription and so on. We are first going to present our team, then go through the project, and then explain the application of it, and end with the moral of the dashboard. Here is our team. So as already mentioned, my name is Adeline. Here is my colleague Ali, and we worked also with Jasper, Omer, and Andrew, which you can see in the Galapagos room on the picture. In the beginning of the project, we decided to divide our teams in our group in different teams in order to work more efficiently. So there was more a database group and backup ends, and then a second one on visualization and statistics. So we received some guidelines of Limecraft, and their guideline was that at the beginning they had like a PDF document that was sent monthly, made by someone manually, and it was sent to the clients to give like an overview of what was the data used and so on in a month. So the idea was to make this data to be automated, and then also to make it more user-friendly so that they could overlook their project, see the evolution of it, and so on. We had the idea to make a dashboard which would be interactive and which would show some graphs to see the project evolution, to see the data use, where the cost came from, and overlook the cost. This was our idea, and now Ali is going to explain how we went and how we processed to this idea.
Okay, hello. My name is Ali. If you could please go back to the former slide. So I will talk you through the process of turning the automated PDF that we received, or sorry, the manually generated PDF we received into automated visualizations. At first, we had many ideas, but primarily we came to the conclusion that running a server on Amazon with Linux on it that communicates with the API and populates our MySQL database, which is then visualized by a Python, Flask backend and a Plotly front end. It created some very interesting visualizations, and the database was quite robust. And the API communication was happening overnight to the degree that we had daily data for every user that we were in control of, which wasn't a lot, but it was multiple users. Ultimately, the database was about 7 megabytes, so it wasn't a huge task, but it scaled well, and it managed to create visualizations quite quickly and robustly. Next slide, please. So what we learned from this process was not necessarily anything technical. We learned what consulting is about more than we learned about, although we did learn a lot about coding backends and building a front end on our own. But what we actually learned that projects, we have to be adaptable. Projects change, the ideas change. As the client learns things about the project that you're building, their ideas will change. So the first thing was to let go of any attachment to the first idea we had, because the first plan is honestly rarely the last one you'll have. One thing we learned was necessary throughout this process, and what consulting really needs is good team communication, not just to maintain source code or to maintain a place for files, but just because we're working as a team, and if there's no communication, somebody is going to feel left out, something is going to go wrong. There is no I in team, so everybody has to be heard. And this was something we learned halfway through properly, which then led us to learning something about the pleasures of consulting. There's something nice about learning new technology and applying it. It might be a bit masochistic, but when the times get tough, they do get fun. And beating problems and finding solutions to little problems incrementally, it has its own feeling of good success. And additionally, we actually learned what consulting means. None of the team members are leaving this project with any ideas that weren't answered about consultancy. So ultimately, what happened to our dashboard? We had an application that worked. However, the application was too convoluted to actually modify. We are consultants, not engineers. We were supposed to bring a solution that they could use eventually. And a complicated end-to-end solution was not the best approach. So ultimately what we learned was that a simple solution is often a better solution. And that end-to-end solutions are overrated primarily because there are a lot of public services that replaced the hard work that we put in with code with a simple drag and drop process, something like AWS QuickSight, which we ultimately chose, which led us to believe that if you have an idea, Jeff Bezos probably already did it for you. And I guess the moral of the dashboard is do not make complicated solutions when you're asked for simple ones. And that's it. Thank you for listening.
All right. Thank you for that, Ali and Adeline. I think the LimeCraft project was really interesting, so thank you for presenting it. While everybody is still overwhelmed by the cuteness of Michailo's really cute child, I would like to give the floor to Simon Knudde, who was a data scientist at HighMind, the partner of the LimeCraft project. So Simon, the floor is yours.
Hello, thank you. So first of all, I want to really congratulate the team. It was an amazing job. So yes, so I'm here to represent HighMind. If you could go to the next slide, please. Yes. HighMind is a company from the group Quantus, which, maybe in the student world isn't all that known. But you probably know Bright Wolves, which is our sister company. So they are focused on management consulting, and we are focused on data strategy, data engineering, and data science. Other companies of the Quantus group are grouped under the Customer Collective. They're mostly marketing consultancy companies, such as the House of Marketing. And what brings us all together in this group is really the values within the company, which is really, entrepreneurial mindsets, moving forward, really a lot of fun while having an impact at the client. Next slide, please. Yeah, so in this very simple slide, what I want to illustrate is really the spirit of how we work. So HighMind is still a very small and new company. We are really in the startup phase of our lifetime, and we want to bring strategy to implementation. And what I mean by that is that we really want to put the business strategy of our clients at the center. We want to understand this and work around it. So we are, of course, focused on the data part of this. So from the business strategy, we want to understand what data strategy is needed for them to move forward. So we help them, we accompany them defining all those requirements, and we also help them in the next step, which is the data engineering. So we have data engineers. We are really into implementing all the infrastructure which is needed. And as that infrastructure is installed, then the next step is, of course, to use the data to create value of the data, and which is our third pillar of expertise, the advanced analytics and AI, which in turn then can feed the business with new insight, with new models, with new features or products. And as it goes, so it iterates. It's never finished. It's never-ending cycle where the strategy evolves from the new insights and so forth. So it's really that spirit of always moving forward and covering as well the business as the technical parts to help the strategy move from a PowerPoint into the real world and implement it. Next slide, yes. And so what I would like to introduce is what we call the Data Leadership Program. So we are setting this up at the moment, which coming from from seeing that what is needed is to have as well the business knowledge as a technical knowledge. Well, at university, you're following either a business courses or technical courses, and where the magic really happens is in diverse teams, when you put both business and technical profiles together. And what we want to do with the Data Leadership Program is to train up our consultants, our new joinees, to have a bit of both. So whatever your background, we want to train you on what you want to evolve in additionally to your background. And to be really the leaders of tomorrow in the field of data. So in really a insight, the topics that could be covered are on the level of data strategy, everything which is needed for the governance, project management, all the GDPR and law ethics, as Mihail also mentioned. Then on the data engineering, we all talk about big data, but what is big data, how to really use it and not be stuck with systems that cannot cope with the volume of data, how to stream it, like how Netflix does it to give you all the recommendation in real time, for instance, all that infrastructure. And finally, the analytics, how to get insights from the data, artificial intelligence, what is it, how to implement it, what are the use cases. That is really everything we want to cover. And also bring to our clients to help them move forward. So this was a pretty short presentation, but feel free to reach out. And yes, always open to discuss. And as I mentioned, we're a small company, but growing. So everybody welcome to have a discussion. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Simon, for the wonderful presentation on HighMind, and also thank you for being such a great partner this semester. If you want to talk to Simon or someone else after the presentation, there's still time and space to do that. Meet platform, so you can just go there. So next up, so next up is our next team, which is a CSI business consulting team. So I would like to give the floor to them. So I give the floor to Anja and Simon.
Okay, I guess we go everyone. Hello, everyone. Good evening. We'll be the last team presenting for you tonight. And we did our case for CSI Business Consulting. You can go to the next slide. So kind of what was our project, right? What would we do? So the gist of our project was that we would work in function for CSI to help with airline delay propagation. Now, this is quite a vague concept. So what are like the three main questions that we want to try and answer in this project? The first one is, can we predict how an initial flight delay actually propagates through our flight network, right? All the connections of the connected flights. The second one is how many minutes of reactionary delay, right? So the delay following an initial delay are actually caused by that initial delay. And then if there is this reactionary delay, and if you have this delay through the network, what are the costs that are associated with this? Next slide, please. So what did our timeline look like? I mean, I guess we start off as every project starts off, right? So first we get the data, we get to know the client, and we get ourselves familiarized with, mostly the airline industry and how it all works. Then we continued in our data exploration, and here it actually became quite apparent that we probably should split up into two teams. Why is that? Well, because on the one hand, there is statistical modeling, but on the other, our hypothesis was that the delay propagation probably is actually more deterministic. So as such, we split up in teams. One started doing the data cleaning because, well, of course, we had a lot of data and a lot of different tables. So we had a lot of aggregation and a lot of cleaning of the data before we could even start thinking of a statistical model. And also some others started on the flight tracking, which was necessary to get through our delays into the deterministic model. And of course, there is a lot of interchanging for the data cleaning and the tracking that goes into both models. But in the end, we use these two to actually get a better delay propagation insight for our clients.
So when taking the statistical approach, our team faced one main difficulty. The data we had contained very little explicit information about the propagation of delay. So we knew what happened with individual flights, but we didn't have information regarding who did what to whom or how a delay in one flight impacts all of the other flights in the network. Next slide, please. So to battle this issue, we kind of had to work backwards to reconstruct cases of propagation, which included two different types of rotational or reactionary delay. One being RL delay, where a delay of one flight affects the following one because they're flown by the same aircraft. And in addition, RA delay, where a flight has to wait for passengers or bags from a different flight. And at this stage, we also defined depth of propagation, which just indicates the number of flights affected by a primary or original delay. So we generated a couple different visualizations to see if we could spot any patterns. And here, for example, we looked at the average arrival delay of flights, and we can see that the flights that triggered other RA delays do in fact tend to have much greater arrival delays on average, than flights which do not trigger RA delays. So there's definitely some correlation between primary delay and RA delay. Next slide. We then looked more deeply at this relationship between primary arrival delay and RA delay to see if there was any clear pattern. But as you can see in the 3 charts we have here, that relationship wasn't very clear cut. Flights with an arrival delay below 200 minutes produced chains of delays ranging anywhere from 1 to 17 flights, which is a pretty broad range, and no obvious clusters of data were detectable here. So although there seemed to be some correlation when we initially started looking, it definitely wasn't a simple or straightforward one, and this kind of confirmed our suspicion that maybe going with a purely statistical model would not be the most feasible or the best solution for our case, and we should focus on further developing a more deterministic model first. And we did also look at whether the type of primary delay impacts how many RA delays were triggered. And we do see that some primary delays, like weather, for example, more frequently causes RA delay. So there's still some merit to considering a statistical model down the line if the input variables are very carefully selected. However, we ultimately decided to proceed with and kind of focus on the deterministic model first, and then potentially build a statistical model on top of that in the future.
Due to those mentioned problems with the missing explainability of our secondary delays, we had to take more information into account than just the attributes of each flight, and that is their dependencies between each other and the flight schedule that gives us the information. On the next slide, we can see some of the relations between the flights that explain how delays propagate in this network, in this schedule. As mentioned, if an airplane has to serve 2 consecutive flights, then the delay propagates. If there are bags or crew members that are shared, they need to be exchanged. So we have those dependencies between the flights, which cause delays to propagate in our network. And that is just a deterministic process based on the schedule. So we can work with that. On the next slide, we can see how we set up our now simple model for this, where we set up a simulation that takes as input a delay on a primary flight, and then looks at how it propagates in the network. And the rules for propagation are here very simple. It's just if the sum of the delay and the time that's needed for the transfer, so cleaning of the airplane, bringing passengers from one flight to the next, or crew transferring, is bigger than the time that's scheduled between the arrival and the next departure, then we have a positive effective delay, which is something that propagates. If there's still buffer time, there's of course no propagation. And here we have an example where we have 3 flights that all, where the first flight ends in Copenhagen and the other 2 start in Copenhagen. And as we can see, there is valuable information in this effective delay. The upper flight is fairly susceptible to delay propagation due to the low margin. Even with a delay of 10 minutes, there will be delay propagation, whereas for the lower flight, flight 3, there's a lot of buffer. So this is a flight which is not that likely to cause delay further. And then to make this usable for predictions, we build a small GUI where you can select a date for the flight schedule, the flights that were flown on this day, and insert a simulated delay into this. And on the next slide, we can see the result graph we get out of this, that if there's a, for example, a 200 minute delay on a first flight, how many flights this is expected to impact, and which flights would be how much later. So we can see that while some flights have a lot of buffer and are not too much delayed, the bulk of the delay just propagate through those 7 flights we have here.
Perfect. Thank you, Marius and Anja, for more insight into the specifics. So what were the biggest challenges we faced? I think the first one we immediately noticed was the quantity and also kind of the quality of the data. Now, why is this? Well, because we had a lot of variables, and due to the second point, our background knowledge and industry knowledge kind of lacking in this area, it was very difficult for us to identify or like have an initial hypothesis and then start identifying the most significant variables. The interactions between variables, as Anja mentioned, was quite difficult to find, and we didn't really end up finding many for our statistical model. And then came the meaningful and effective visualization, which you kind of want to have. There again, due to the lack of quality and the different linkages and tables not really matching up, it was kind of difficult for us to have a clear visualization of this. Like I mentioned, the background industry knowledge was a bit lacking because there are a lot of abbreviations and a lot of terminology is very specific and was actually very necessary for us to have because a lot of the delays had their own terms and whatever. And also the anomalies in the data, which we had quite a lot. And it wasn't always apparent whether or not it was an anomaly or maybe it was actually kind of possible. But yeah, that's why we had to communicate a lot with our partners. Then what is it what we like to do? Well, of course, initially we set out maybe a statistical model. In the end, we focused more on the deterministic model. But now that we have this and we have more insights into our data, we feel that for sure a statistical model would be ideal and we would be able to develop this. As such, we could predict the scale of the delay propagation based on a set of variables which we bring forth, of course. And when we would have this, actually, we could finally answer the third question, right? Is how much is the cost for the company? So we could start calculating and predicting the costs or the potential costs that come from a propagated delay, so that the airline itself could actually make a lot more informed decisions on maybe speeding up the flight or maybe starting to look into buying tickets for people who missed their flights and whatever. So the next slide, I guess it wasn't added, but we had a last slide thanking all of our, of course, CSI Business Consulting, of course, Mobius, and of course, Julie, and the airline data science team, because thanks to them, we actually got quite some nice insights. There you go. So a special thank you to Wim from CSI Business Consulting, to Peter, Cynthia, and Norilak from Mobius. Julie, of course, our Emergent team lead, she was a very useful help as well. And then the airlines analytics team, they really helped us gain better understanding of our data we had. So thank you for listening.
All right. For the lovely presentation on the CSI Business Consulting, a very complex problem, but I think you've solved it very well. So let's move on to the last part of the presentation. I give the floor to Peter of Mobius, who will present Mobius Business Consulting.
Yes, thanks, Branko. Thanks, everyone. First of all, let me also congratulate the different teams for the presentation today, but especially maybe the last team here. I really enjoyed our interactions and guiding you through this journey, and knowing from where we started and the complexity that you faced. I'm really amazed by what you delivered today. So congratulations. Let me also take the opportunity here to introduce Mobius. I'm the analytics team lead at Mobius, and I'd like to show you what we do from an analytics perspective, but also more general. And as also Mihailo already mentioned, they are looking for talent. We are looking for talent as well. So if you're interested, please contact me at the end. Always open for a talk. So at Mobius, we are actually a consulting company, and we help organizations at strategic moments throughout their life cycle. What are those strategic moments? Can be anything, actually. It's if they are in need for a new strategy, for example, a digital roadmap, for example, improving customer experience, for example, redesigning their network. That's a strategic challenge, and we support those organizations by not only designing the solution, but also implementing the solution. So we're not consultants that just make papers and do studies. We also help them, let's say, in the field by implementing the solutions. We help designing as well. We started 25 years ago as a spin-off of Ghent University, but by now we have offices in Belgium, the Netherlands, and France, and we're about 100 consultants. We do on average more than 300 projects every year, which means that every consultant does more than 3 projects every year. So we're not body shoppers, or we're not interim manager organization. No, there's really a diversity of projects to really see synergies between different projects and to keep people motivated. Maybe why we still wake up every morning is because we have a clear purpose at Möbius. I still like to mention this because it's important for us, and it helps us making decisions. It helps us making decisions on which projects to choose, which people to hire, and what actually to do. Maybe very briefly, what are those 4 pillars of our purpose? First is we want to contribute to society. We want to make a difference. We want to make our mark, actually. We want to do projects that you see making a difference. That's one. Second thing, we also focus on innovation, but maybe not in the way that B12 does. We are really looking for small and larger innovations, because we believe that even small changes, small innovations can have a big impact. And we look for innovations across the board in our projects today, in our internal processes, but also at customers, and maybe also longer term. The third pillar is also quite important for our purpose. We really believe in engaging extraordinary people, special people, highly motivated people, people with special talents to achieve the best results. We are a flat organization at Möbius. We have self-steering teams. We have, even though we don't have a formal CEO, really to let people shine and achieve the best results. And finally, maybe we also promote networked collaboration. That's maybe a difficult word, just to say that we build bridges. We build bridges between ourselves and the clients. We build bridges between different clients, between stakeholders at the clients, because we believe that 1 + 1 is actually 3. Okay, maybe let me highlight a couple of customers and type of projects we do before I explain 2 cases on analytics. So the next slide shows us which sectors we are active in. You see services, retail, healthcare, society, industry, but maybe let's skip immediately to the next slide, because you'll see also a few customer names on top of on this slide. In industry, we do projects on sustainability, on supply chain, inventory optimization, planning. At Novartis, for example, we do operational excellence, making manufacturing processes more lean. At BASF, for example. In services and retail, that's a wide variety of customers. It goes from public broadcasting, the VRT, over to retailers like Colruyt, Hugo, but also banking, telecom, education. Those are customers in that sector. We do projects on customer experience, employee engagement, also dashboarding in services. Healthcare, the healthcare sector is a sector where we work with almost every hospital in Belgium, focusing on optimizing the costs, optimizing capacity, making sure we have enough beds, for example, but we also do workforce planning. And maybe to end my story on the wide diversity of projects we do at Möbius, we are also active in the public sector, in society, so going from local government up to federal government, where we support on strategy, we support on organizational development, improving service, and so on. So a wide range of customers, a wide range of sectors, a wide range of topics, but maybe throughout all this, we also want to inject analytics in hopefully every project, but we have, of our 100 consultants, around 15 that are really dedicated analytics consultants. And for that, with that team, we hope to, or we actually deliver analytics in a couple of projects. And I've highlighted 2 projects where we really make a difference. and that's really focused around analytics. And let me maybe finish by highlighting 2 projects. One is for Johnson & Johnson, where we support, and we actually are the global supply chain analytics team. What does it mean? We support all analytics end-to-end to optimize the supply chain globally for Johnson & Johnson. That means we design models, we build models to optimize inventory, to optimize the go-to-market. We build scenario planning capabilities to support long-term strategies. We set up tracking, dashboarding to monitor KPIs. And yeah, by now we are really good at that actually, because we combine a couple of expertise. What we combine is not only a data science skill set, we also know a lot of the processes, the products, the customers of Johnson & Johnson. We also know a lot of the systems and the data availability, the data quality, and that makes us an excellent team actually to do that end-to-end supply chain analytics. Maybe finally, a project we're really proud of is the support, the overall project coordination for the vaccination in Flanders. So that's the next slide, which is actually everything related to the vaccination in Flanders starting end of last year up till now is supported by Möbius. That's going from setting up the blueprints for every vaccination center in Flanders. So how does it need to be set up? What are the roles, the processes in each vaccination center? How do we do the supply chain from the manufacturers, Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, down to the hospitals and even into the arms of the patients of every person in Flanders? It's also around the IT backbone, the COVID Safe app. Everything is being supported by Möbius. And the one thing I'd like to highlight here is also the analytics pillar. We built an allocation model to first determine how many vaccination centers need to be placed in Flanders and where approximately. So we came up with the answer of 95 vaccination centers and also determined the regions where they are best placed. It was up to the local governments then to select the sports site or this site, but we determined the smaller region already. But we also made an allocation model to make sure that every vaccination center in Flanders was vaccinating at the same pace, that Ghent was not fully vaccinated before Antwerp was vaccinated. So we allocated all the vaccines coming in to all the different people in Flanders. And that's an allocation model that was very flexible because it had to change to decisions overnight. If you see on television a statement by the minister that they'll limit vaccinations under 41 years for Johnson & Johnson, we were immediately able to project what it means for supply with the current supplies. It also made sure that every vaccinated person is guaranteed a second dose and things like that. So it's actually an end-to-end project with a really big analytics pillar. So that's it actually. If you are interested in any of these things I mentioned, feel free to reach out. We're always looking for extraordinary people to realize extraordinary results. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Peter, for the presentation on Möbius, and also thank you for being a partner. Now, to end, I would like to promote Emergent last time. So these are our socials. You can follow us on Instagram, on Facebook and LinkedIn, or you can join our Facebook community group using the QR code, which is up there. But of course, most importantly, there are still some people I would like to thank. So first of all, I would like to thank our partners of HighMind, Möbius and B12 Consulting. Their input is really valuable projects to a next level. I would like to CSI Business Consulting and Comproved for the really nice and actually give us the chance to solve a real life problem with our student consultants. And most importantly, I would like to thank our student consultants. I think they all did a really great job, and I hope they had a really nice experience with the consulting projects. And because we're so grateful and so thankful for the work they did, we're actually gonna give them all a nice Emergent sweater like this one here. So we're really proud of every student to be part of the community that Emergent is and tries to be our AI and data science community. So that's why we want them definitely to be able to show that they're part of us. So if you also want to be, if you also want to get the chance to get such nice sweater, can I get the next slide? We would like to see you next semester because Emergent will be back with more interesting projects. So pin the 22nd of February in your calendar. Then we will have the info event of this projects we will have next semester. We're projecting to have 2 or 3 projects again for you to participate in, and I believe that they will be very interesting again. But you could also take it a step further and join Emergent. So there are 2 things you can actually do. I invite you to come talk to us at the tables afterwards, or you can always reach out to us or to our president Liam. So this is Liam. If you ever have questions about joining Emergent, there are still open positions at Emergent for the 2nd semester. We're still looking for extra people to organize all the things we do with Emergent, not only consulting projects, but also our talks and other events. But we're also already starting the recruitment of the board we will have next year. So if you have any questions, please reach out to Liam or to Klaas, who is our lead recruitment. And then I hope to see you joining the Emergent family, the Emergent community. So thank you for being here, and I invite everyone to the networking